The following sections describe a use case where ICP and PCP was conducted between the consultants and the contractors during the construction phase. Your process may vary, but the principle remains the same. So everything starts from the kickoff meeting, and from them onwards, there could be a series of trainings to train the different stakeholders, and then you start off with the ICP process. And when the construction period reaches a steady state, you may want to transit from the ICP process to a PCP process until the construction is completed, and then you hand over the project. Let's start with more detailed discussion with the kickoff meeting. And the purpose of the kickoff meeting is to introduce the approach to all the stakeholders. The kickoff meeting will be carried out to jumpstart and set a platform for a common understanding of the project. All members are required to attend, including representatives from the developer, so as to provide clarity to the set processes and metrics in the project. Different roles and responsibilities for each team were also articulated to clarify the overall management scope for the project. In this kickoff meeting, salient points discussed as listed below. All the activities are typically completed within the first 2 weeks upon the initiation of the project. The goals and objectives and how the project team shall work towards them. That is one of the important items to discuss in the kickoff meeting. The importance of each stakeholder's participation during the integrated concurrent engineering sessions that is going to come on after the kickoff meeting. And all the members must aim towards solving issues for the project as quickly as possible. Targets are set and all stakeholders must strive to achieve the targets. Third point, schedules and frequencies for the intensive collaboration period, or ICP, and when to transit into the progressive collaboration period, or PCP. Venues and infrastructures for these sessions are also discussed. Coordination workflow leading to the shop drawing productions and any exceptional workflows, and how to manage these changes with reference back to the master schedule. The deliverables out of the ICP or PCP sessions, and the utilizations of the project BIM for any other purpose in the project. And lastly, any concerns by the stakeholders. Where members are not clear with a VDC framework or lack understanding on the matrix, a separate training session can be carried out for them. The following diagram describes a typical ICP or PCP scenario from the preparation to the start of the construction work. This cycle repeats itself as the project goes location by location according to the master schedule. In this example, the ICP-PCP moderator is the main contractor, and all the stakeholders are not physically co-located together. There are different activities, as you can see here in the diagram, typically 1, 2, 3, 4, and it repeats itself again, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And finally, when things goes to the stabilized stage, it goes to 5 and to 6. So what are the activities 1 to 6? Let's look at them in closer detail. Activity 1 involves preparation. In this case, the contractor takes on the leading role of the IPC. In some early preparations by the contractors involving evaluating the requirements and studying the primary models for quality issues. The first session is usually used to explain the file structure and structure management for all project models and document repository site. The modeling teams are to follow a structured filing system as well as a naming convention and essential core entries. If work sharing mechanisms are used, the do's and the don'ts will be enforced, okay, for the benefit of the project members. Item number 2 refers to the preparation work that needs to be done before the commencement of each ICP or PCP session that is going to be undertaken in an integrated concurrent engineering type of manner. So prior to each integrated concurrent engineering session, which could be ICP or PCP, the contractor would generally compile and distribute the set of issues to be discussed to all stakeholders for assessment before the actual session. During the actual session, the project team systematically go through each issue, ideally updating the BIM model as per the discussed resolution. At the end of each session, which could be ICP session or PCP session, some time will be allocated for the BIM coordinator to do a summary on the achievements against the target for the day, the follow-up items to be addressed in the next session, and communicate any preparatory work essential to the team members. All stakeholders will then copy a set of all latest models back with them to address any back office follow-up works. After the session, we will do what we call model update. All respective stakeholders will then have to collect this information back with them for any of the internal operational activities, such as validating against their regulatory approved drawings or correspondent with their specialist subcontractors. And when the process is completed, there will be construction documentation. While the coordination works could lead to an early availability of shop drawings, it should not be generated until the site is ready to utilize these documents. This is to avoid creating any drawing versions between the cycles. One can apply the pool principle and set a target to generate the shop drawings, for example, 2 weeks before the actual construction work, and gradually modify this duration after monitoring for a period of time. The next stage is to freeze documentation period. Once the shop drawings have been generated, it should be read as a period where no changes should be allowed to the model or documents. Otherwise, revisions will affect the quality of the cycle. And lastly, we will track the matrix. Any pre-established matrix must be kept up to date during the ICP phase and not left to the end of the cycle to compile data. Where automation in capturing this data is available, one will need to exploit this option where possible as to improve the credibility of the matrix obtained. Only then can this information be used to process or progress the project forward. These set targets are constantly tracked, monitored, and benchmarked internally against actual data so that any necessary adjustment to the targets can be applied where necessary. There will come a point in time where the project cycle that the ICP phase would have created a good enough buffer between the virtual coordination works and the actual construction activity. For example, coordination now is 3 months or 5 floors ahead of the actual construction. The lead time of this buffer is subject to the discretion and comfort level of the project team. At this stage, the stakeholders have to collectively come together to decide on a new interval period for the integrated concurrent engineering session. And it is from here that the intensive collaboration period will transit to the progressive collaboration period or PCP. With regards to the functionality of the PCP, all functions during PCP are no different from ICP, although it may not be as critical to update the issues in the project model during the actual session. This is the diagram to explain to you the intensive collaboration period and how it looks like. The duration for the ICP can run anything from 2 months to 6 months from the project award, depending on the scale and complexity of the project. The frequency will be very high, okay? It could be daily, okay, or very high frequency. By the time you transit to the PDC model, okay, or in terms of the duration, it will be from the end of the ICP all the way to the end of the project. In terms of the frequency can now be progressively reduced from a daily IC session perhaps to 2 times a week or once a month, and subsequently stretch it to a longer period. The concept of using ICP and PCP can be carried out during the construction stage, and it can be also done during the design stage. Though the use case that we were talking about just now was based on the construction stage, the principles and concepts of the ICP and PCP can also be applied during design, while work on the design coordination in preparation for tender. Some of the principles of conducting the integrated concurrent engineering sessions can also hold true for any project coordination or process design, which involve the input of multiple stakeholders with the intention of arriving at a solution or resolution as speedily as possible. The diagrams below illustrate how the symbolic representations, okay, to the proportion of the time spent in ICP or PCP during the design or construction phases in a design, bid and build environment. The eventual composition of time spent for different types of project will then be expected to vary depending on the project complexity. This is for the design phase, and this is for the construction phase. Here are some sample activities where you can create your target and your metrics or measurement for the targets. You can have modeling activities or modeling works where you have certain targets and how you want to measure them. You can have the integrated concurrent engineering meetings, how you want to measure your targets, the coordination works, the shop drawing production, the value engineering, the planning and scheduling, the cost estimation, quantity taking off, and this costing work, the off-site fabrication activities, the beam to the construction site communication and visualization, site briefing and safety briefing, progress monitoring and production control, waste and cost control, and quality in general. This is to give you an idea of some of the activities where you can create targets and how do you want to measure these targets. You can also create your key performance indicators in relation to quality, time, waste, issue resolution, shop drawing cycles, and your targets and how you want to measure against these targets for your key performance indicators.